Hello, my name is Mark Neel and I own Castle Rock Bike and Ski. Today we're going to talk about changing a flat, the bane of every cyclist's existence. Things that you will need: tire levers to be able to remove the tire off of the wheel. You'll need a new tube, obviously. And then lastly, you'll need either a floor pump, a frame pump, CO2 cartridges, and today I'm going to cheat and I'm going to actually use the air compressor line because we're here in the store. Some quick tips when you're changing a flat on a bicycle, especially in the field. With the rear derailleur, if you have to do a rear wheel, the first thing you want to do is you want to shift the derailleur all the way to the outboard position on the bicycle. So you'll actually shift your bicycle so you can get that chain completely out of the way. What that does for you is that when you're dropping the rear wheel out of the frame, the derailleur is moved to the most outboard position, and that just allows you so you're not fighting that rear derailleur. So for today's purposes, we're going to change the front wheel of this mountain bike. This mountain bike has a through axle and it requires a 6mm Allen key to unthread that through axle. So once I have done that, I'll pull the axle out of the fork, drop the wheel, and then always, if it's a through axle, please put it back in your bicycle. That way you don't lose it on the trail. We are then going to take 3 tire levers, and this is where some of the tricks of the trade help when replacing a flat. This uses what's called a Presta valve versus a Schrader valve. A Presta valve always has a threaded lock ring, so the first thing you want to do is remove your threaded lock ring before you try to remove your tube. Then I'm going to fully deflate this tire because it still had a little extra air pressure in there. And once I do that, one thing you always want to do is try to break the bead of the tire off the rim. So starting where the valve is, basically just take your thumbs, push all the way around until you've broken that bead off the seal of the rim. This will make it much easier to get those tire levers in to remove the tire. So what you do with your 3 tire levers is there is the spoon side right here. We're going to be sticking that starting at the valve stem. Pick the first spoke to the right of the valve stem that is on the same side of the hub or the wheel that you are. So I'm going to stick this in here, pick it up, and just hook it right there. It's that simple. I'm going to move over to the next one, do it again, and by the time I get to the third one, over here, I'll have gotten enough off that actually the tire lever in the middle slipped out, right? So then you're going to take your tire lever, slide it in here, and just move it all the way around so you can get the bead of the tire off. Then what you want to do is you're going to come to where your valve stem is. You're going to pull your tire back so you can remove your valve stem out of the hole in the rim. Then you're just going to gently pull the tube out, and then you've got it out. Very simple. So then what you want to do is always take your new inner tube and make sure it has a little bit of shape to it before you try to inflate it inside the rim. So a lot of new tubes will come flat out of the package. So you can use your lips with a Presta valve to air it up. If it's a Schrader valve or if you have a frame pump with you, pump it up a little bit so it has a little bit of shape, and then always close off the valve. In the case of a Presta valve, with a Schrader valve, it has a spring-loaded nipple in there which will always close itself. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the valve hole, and I'm going to peel the tire back, and I'm going to just drop that valve right in through the hole, and then I'm going to pick the tire back up. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I just get the tire laid in, or the tube, excuse me, laid into the tire all the way around, just like that. Then I go back to where the valve hole is, and I make sure that my valve is straight. I don't want it crooked in the valve hole. So that means you may have to slide it a little bit inside the tire, left or right, to get it straight. And then, starting at the valve hole, start to re-anchor the bead onto the rim. So right here, I'm re-anchoring it, I'm setting it back in, and then I gently, moving both directions, keep reseating the tube, or the tire onto the rim. And then if you notice, I end up with this last section that's kind of fighting me. You want to make sure you get that over the channel of the rim, and then slowly just beat it back on with your hands. Now you will get to a certain point that always has that last inch or two that is hard to get. So then you can take your tire lever, using the spoon side, but instead of trying to dig it up this way, we're going to turn it around and we're going to slide it in, take one thumb and anchor it on the bead of the tire where it's still off, and then just slowly push it in here and come around until you get it all the way seated onto the rim. Then the next step is very important. And a mistake that I see a lot of people make is they immediately try to air up their tire. The first thing you want to do, though, before you do that, is you always want to make sure that you have no tube sitting between the bead of the tire and the rim, because that's a surefire way to pinch your tube when you inflate it, especially if you're going to use a CO2 cartridge. So one thing I do is I just start peeking both sides all the way around just to make sure I have everything seated correctly and that tube is sitting up into the tire, not pinched between the rim of the tire the rim of the wheel and the tire itself. Then I'm going to take the air compressor line, open up my valve, and then just gently reinflate the tire. And as you can hear, that popping noise, especially with a mountain bike, you need to make sure that the seat of the tire is beaded correctly. To do that, start at your valve stem on the tire and just look and make sure it's all the way seated, all the way around correctly so that you have a full seat of the tire onto the rim. Obviously, close your valve stem. And in the case of a Presta valve, it'll come with a lock ring. Make sure you reinstall your lock ring. Maybe. There we go. Put my valve cap back on. And then finally, reinstall the wheel onto the bicycle. And that, folks, is how you change a flat out in the field. Thank you for watching YouTube channel Castle Rock Bike and Ski.